Hey everyone, in this video I'll show you a simple workflow for creating PDF figures for your conference papers, journal papers, thesis, dissertation, etc. Really whatever you want to use it for. The reason for creating PDFs as opposed to JPEGs or PNGs is that you get the high quality of vector images as opposed to the lower quality raster images. So basically when you zoom in on the PDF schematics they won't look pixelated like the JPEG and the PNG will. I'll be showing you two methods, the first using PowerPoint, which obviously you'll need Microsoft Office for, and the second using Inkscape, which is a free program, and my current preference, which I'll explain later. So we'll open up PowerPoint and we'll select the blank presentation option, which opens up a title slide. We don't want these text boxes here, so you can either just delete them like this, or you can create a new blank slide and then delete that slide. Now I like to have the ruler and the grid lines turned on, so we can see the ruler already and you can see the grid lines. If yours aren't on, we can go to the View tab and just make sure that these two are checked, and you'll see why I like them later. I'm just going to create a super simple schematic so that it doesn't take long. So let's go to the Insert tab and we'll click on Shapes, and I'll add a line, for example, and I will hold Shift to snap it to like 45 degrees, for example. We'll change that to black. I'll change the weight to something a little bit bigger. Then we can add a circle. Again, press Shift to maybe snap it to a circle, and we'll make it black like that. I'll add it here. Control C, Control V, add it up here again. Insert another line, make it horizontal, make it black, change the weight. We will change it to a dash line, something like that. Add it up here. Copy, paste. We can rotate by 90 degrees. Add it there, for example. Shift click and adjust so that it keeps it vertical. Shift click adjust, keeps it horizontal. Now we can insert, for example, in equation mode, the panel length, which I'll call S, and I'll just make that like 40, and we can move that there. Copy, paste. Call this, oops, D, that's not X, it's DY, and then we will copy paste. Don't worry, we're almost done, and this will just be DX, something like that. That's our super simple schematic. So let's save this as a PPTX file so that we can make edits later. And so file, save as, so I'll save this as figure_PPTX. Save it. Okay, and now let's just try to save this as a PDF right now by going to File. That's not File. We'll go to File, Save As, and here we can go down here and we'll select PDF. I like to deselect this so that it doesn't open after publishing, and we'll just call it Figure V1. So in this case though, let's just open up the saved file. So you can see this is the opened PDF file, and as you probably expected, the entire slide was saved, not just the part of the schematic that we wanted. Also know that the grid lines are not saved, so we can just leave them in for alignment purposes. So what we want to do is adjust the size of the slide so that we can just save the part of the schematic that we want. So the first step for doing this is to select all of the things like this, or you can just press Control A, and then we will right click, select group, and then group again. And now we want to align this grouped schematic to the 0, 0 on the rulers, and you can align them using the dots here. And so typically I just move them with the arrow keys so that they are aligned pretty close, right? So that's aligned on the 0, this is aligned on the 0. So once it's centered on the slide like this, we can now adjust the slide size by going to the Design tab, Slide Size, Custom Slide Size, and we need to adjust the width and the height. And so you can use the ruler for this as well, because you can see that the sides go out to like a little bit above 2, and if we double that because it's symmetric about the 0, we get something like, if we double 2.5, we'll get 5. So we'll say like the width is 5, for example, and for the height, it's a little bit above 2, so 4, maybe we do 4.5 just to be safe. I always make it a little bit bigger to start with. So now when you press OK, you'll have to select either Maximize or Ensure Fit. We will select Maximize now, and you can see that it brought the slide in a little bit tighter. And I actually want to get it even tighter than this, so you can go back into here, Custom Slide Size, maybe bump that down a couple, maximize maybe a tiny bit more just for fun here. Okay, there you go. That looks pretty good right now. So what happens if you go overboard and make it a little bit too tight by accident? Let's go in here and we'll just set this to like 3 as an extreme. We'll click maximize. Okay, now it goes out over the bounds like this. And let's say you go back in here and say, whoops, that wasn't that great. Let's go back out to 4.5. Okay, maximize. Okay, now it's even worse. So things kind of didn't work out that great. And so what you need to do instead when trying to back out of resizing too tight is to use the ensure fit option instead. So let me just undo this, Control Z, and let's go back, custom slide size, and let's just try to bring this again back out to 4.5. And now we will use ensure fit instead, and you can see now it backs out our slide to something reasonable, and we can readjust from here. So typically, if you're decreasing slide dimensions, use maximize. If you're increasing slide dimensions, use ensure fit. So let's try to save this back out again. I'm going to save this as a PDF, correct? So we'll just call it figure underscore PDF. Okay. And then if we open that up, for example, we can see that it looks more reasonable in terms of what we actually wanted. And so what I'm going to do real quick here is take my snipping tool, and I'm going to just take a snip of this and we'll save it. And we'll call it, yeah, it's already there, so we'll call it figure PNG. And what we can do is go into the LaTeX file here, and I'm plotting figure PNG and figure PDF. And if we quick build this, and if I open that up in Sumatra, then you can see the two schematics here, and they both look okay, right? This is the PNG, this is the PDF. But when you zoom in on the PNG, you can see, oh, it's pixelated there. And on the diagonal line, you can also see it's pixelated. But if you go to the PDF, and you zoom in as far as you can go, it is not pixelated, and that's the benefit of using the PDFs as opposed to PNGs. So let's say that you want to add another schematic for your paper, because this one's good, now we just want another one. So I'm going to add a blank slide here, so we'll go new slide, blank, and I'm going to go here, I'm just going to copy that into here, I'm going to right click, I'm going to ungroup, for example, maybe we'll change, these a little bit just to bring it down, and this is our, whoops-a-daisy. This is our new schematic that we want. If we wanted to save as a PDF right now, we can do that. And so if we do this, we will just save this as figure schematic 2 as a PDF, and we'll press save. And now you can see here that if I open it up, we have both of these slides in this PDF, and this is not going to fly for our LaTeX document because it'll plot both of these at the same time because it's plotting the PDF that we just saved. So to fix this, what we'll do is we'll go to File, and then again we'll go to PDF, and maybe we'll change this to 3 here. And before you save it, we'll go to Options, and then we'll just save Current Slide, press OK. And now you can see that we only have that one slide, whereas before we had both of them. So that's how you can save single slides out in PowerPoint, even if you have multiple. But what you can see from the schematic is that the slide is now oversized for this smaller schematic. So what can we do? Well, we can do the normal thing here, which is group it all, and then we'll kind of move it to the center as best we can. And then if we go to design, and then we do custom slide size, and we'll bring down the height, whatever, to 3.7. Okay, maximize. Okay, now it's a little bit better. The problem is that now it has adjusted all of the slides, and so this slide is off of the slide, and we'd have to keep adjusting, and presumably all your schematics are not going to be the exact same size. So realistically, if you want your schematics, or if you want to make your schematics in PowerPoint, you'll end up having to save a separate single slide PowerPoint file for every figure you want to make. And that works okay. In fact, I used to do that myself, but this limitation was enough to make me want to find a better option, and that better option is, in my opinion, Inkscape. After you've downloaded Inkscape and opened up the program, it should look something like what you see here. So let's save this document now by going to File, Save As. And one of the benefits for my workflow is that now I only need a single Inkscape file for every paper I write instead of multiple PowerPoint files. So what I typically do is just save this Inkscape file in the same directory as my tech file, and let's just call it schematics as of 020621, and it'll be a .svg file. I like to add the most recent update date to the end so that I can save updated versions later if I make a big change and want to have older versions as a backup. I would then just copy, paste that in there, it'll say copy, and then I'll change this to, for example, the next date that I updated, and then I would just open this one up and work from there. The default page outline shown here confused me the first time I used Inkscape, where I thought I had to fit everything inside of it, and it was always shaped like a normal piece of paper. This is not the case, and we'll use the entire drawing board, as you'll see. When I start, I like to just write some text so that I can see the default 30-point font size, so I know what general scale to start my schematics at. So we'll take the text tool, and we'll just say, this is some text. Like that. We can kind of zoom in here. I also like to change this to Arial. I just like that better. And so if you zoom in or out too far to begin with, your text sizes for labels are going to be outrageous. And I found that out the hard way one time when my text size needed to be like over 1,000 to match my schematic. And of course you can scale everything or whatever, but it's best to just start out at a normal size to begin with. The keys and mouse clicks you use to navigate this document are quite simple. The mouse wheel to scroll up and down, the mouse middle click and hold and drag to move the entire canvas, or you can just hold down the space bar and move the mouse without clicking to move the canvas, which is what I generally do since I'm used to it. And then for zooming, just hold the control key down and scroll in and out with the mouse wheel. And finally, you can press the escape key to get out of a selection. So for example, in this text, if I go into the text here, you can see I'm in the text and I can press escape to get out of that, and then I can press escape again to get back to the selection tool. Let's draw the same schematic that we did before in PowerPoint. Note that this is not an Inkscape tutorial, so I'll just move pretty quickly here. I'm going to grab this tool here, click, press Control, and then drag out, press click to end it, and then press Enter to end. Now we're going to change the stroke style to, or the width to 2 millimeters, for example, and then we will add a circle. So I'm going to hold Control to get kind of an actual circle here, and we want to fill this in, so we'll go to Fill, and we'll make it black like that. I'll just put it kind of here, copy paste, and we'll put the other one up here. Now we need these edges, and so we'll take this tool again, click, hold Control to get a horizontal line, enter, and then for this one we'll make it also 2, and we'll put dashes, and these look like they work, for example, and copy paste, and I'm going to rotate 90 degrees, and then we'll go like this. Now I need to scale this in and out, and you can see if I scale it like this, it makes the width bigger. So to get around that, we deselect this, change the width back to 2, and now when we adjust this, you can see the width doesn't change. So now we can move this guy in like that. We can move this guy in something like this. It's not perfect right now, but then we can adjust these. Oops, that was a little too far. Something like that. This one's probably okay as well. I'll just move it out a little bit. Something like that. Okay, that looks okay. Now we just need the text. This text is a little small right now, so I'm just going to bump it up to like 60, for example. We'll put that there. Copy paste. And we'll make this, that's not correct, it'll be dy, and this will be dx, and we'll move that down there, move that there, move that there. That looks pretty good. Let's say I wanted another version of this schematic, but now colored differently. I'll just select all of the components by clicking and dragging like this. I'm going to press Control D to duplicate on top of the existing one, and then I'll drag this out. I'm going to Control drag it so that it keeps it aligned horizontally, not that it matters. And now you can see we have 2 schematics. We can change the diagonal to blue, for example, so we can go into the stroke paint, change that to blue. We can change these lines here to red, for example, and then we can change these guys to green, noting that we need to change the fill as well. And now you can see that these lines are on top of the circles, which is not what I like to see, so we're going to make another layer. This is all on layer 1 right now, so I'm just going to add a layer, layer 2 above the current one. That's fine. And then I'll just shift click on both of these, right click, and then I'm going to select move to layer or press M, and then we'll just move those to layer 2, so now they're on top, and this looks fine. You can see that these here are text labels. We had used the equation mode in PowerPoint, and while there is an Inkscape plugin that converts text equations appropriately in Inkscape, I personally don't use it. So there are 2 things that I'll do here. The first is if you just want some variables, and so for example here, maybe I'll add a beta for this angle right here. And you can use Unicode input in the text by starting a text box. So we'll do that right here, start a text box. And then we can press Control U, and you can see at the bottom it says Unicode enter to finish. And so for beta, the Unicode is it's 03B2, and press enter, and then you can see it shows up in here, and maybe we can size this up a bit, up to 60 like before. maybe we'll italicize it, and then we can move it in here, and that's how you can add a single symbol if you want. Now, if we want a big complicated equation instead, then I like to just go into LaTeX, write an equation, and then copy it from the PDF file and paste it into Inkscape. And you'll say, Josh, won't that mess up the vector nature of the schematic? And yes, that's true, but I don't actually include equations in my schematics very often, and it's really not that noticeable unless you zoom in really far. But here's how I do it if I need to. I'll go into my LaTeX document here, and we'll just begin an equation like that, and then we'll say is equal to the square root of dx squared plus dy squared, like that. Save it, run it, and then if you go into the PDF document here, then you just scroll in as far as you can. Oops-a-daisy, sorry. And then usually I can go in farther on my external monitor, and then I just snip it like this, for example. We save it, say equation, and then I just drag it and drop it into my Inkscape file like this, and we can rotate this. So we can go into transform and we can rotate this by 45 degrees, for example, like that. And let me just get that guy out of the way, and then we can control click to scale it, come down in here, and maybe something like that looks okay. So that's enough time spent on creating the schematics. Let's see how to export them. When you export a PDF, it will export what's on the outline page that you see here. So let's just bring in this text, for example. We'll just put some here, and we'll actually just bring some down here to show you. And then if we say File, Save As, and we don't want an SVG, we want the PDF, so we'll go like that, and we'll call this, Figure 1, for example, and save it. Leave the defaults, press OK. Then after opening it up as a PDF here, you can see the entire figure is basically the page that was outlined in the Inkscape document. Note that after you save a PDF, you'll see that the file name at the top here is still the PDF. So we want to go back to File, Save As, and then it'll be defaulted in the SVG, and so you just double click your Inkscape file. It'll say it already exists. Do you want to replace it? Yes, replace it. Now we're back in here. So what we want to do is move the page so that it surrounds what we want to output. And the way that I do this is to create a rectangle using the rectangle tool. We'll drag it like that. You can see that it defaults to green with dashed lines because that's the last thing that we did. So we'll go back into the fill and stroke, and I'll say I don't want any fill. I want the stroke to be black, and I want it to be pretty thin because we just want the outline, and I actually want it to be solid, so we'll change that back. And then we can drag this so that it becomes the page, and we'll bring it in pretty tight, kind of like how we did in the PowerPoint, and something like that, and that's what we want to output. And then what we do is we click this, and you can go to Edit, and then go down to Resize Page to Selection, or Shift-Control-R. So Shift-Control-R, you can see that the page moved from here to over here, and then we can save this out. So let's just save this out like we did before. File, Save As, make it a PDF. We'll call it Figure 2. For example, okay. And here I've opened it up again as the PDF, and you can see that it is tighter around our schematic, but we have the black outline from our rectangle, which we don't actually want. So if we just go back in here and we click this and just drag it out of the way, you can see the page is still there, but the rectangle's off, and we can again go back in, save as the PDF, and we'll just overwrite that one, yes. And now you can see that that black border is gone, and we have the schematic that we want. So I'm just going to quickly save this again, but change these names. So I'll save this one as a PDF, and we'll save it as figure black white, like that. And then we can move this guy over, something like that. Control-Shift-R to move the page, and we'll just drag that out of the way. File, save as, change it to a PDF, and we'll save this one as color. So now I'm just back into my LaTeX file, and you can see I've added those two figures in here, figure black white, figure color. And if we run this and then we open up the document, we can see the two figures right here. And if you zoom in over here on some curved stuff, you can see that it's all good. If you zoom in on the equation that I copied in, yeah, it's not quite great, but who's really zooming in that far? It looks okay if you wanted to put some equations in. So finally, you can see how you can organize all your figures in one Inkscape file for a single paper you're writing. And I like to have all of my schematics in one document for that paper, and you can see I have some text above each that describes what that schematic is about, and then maybe some status information in big letters up here. I can see this one's not done yet, I need to finish it. This one I finished on February 6th. And so in this video, we walk through a couple ways to make nice vector figures for your papers that you write using either PowerPoint or Inkscape. Hopefully this helps you, and thanks for watching.